Well, good evening, everyone. Oh, that's atrocious. I know the microphone is on. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh my gosh. All right. I've had a hard week. I need better than that, okay? Can we try that again? How are you all? You're well? Awesome. Good, good, good. For those of you I haven't met, I'm the Reverend Jennifer Brower, and on behalf of the ministry team, Oscar Sinclair, our student intern, and I are very pleased that you could be here with us tonight at the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. If you are new to Soulful Sundown, know that we do always start late. It seems to be part of who we are as Unitarian Universalists. Know that we're very glad that you're here, and we hope that you'll be receptive to those who will be even later in arriving. If you are unfamiliar with Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, know that we'd be delighted to tell you about us. If you have any questions after the service, don't hesitate to catch one of us or a member of this congregation who will certainly be wearing their name tags. I see one. Okay, thank you for wearing your name tag. You'll find that one person with a name tag you can ask questions of. I hope you'll take the time after the service to introduce yourselves to me and to Oscar. We would like to get to know everyone who's here tonight. We know that we have a big turnout of folks for our featured artist, so we look forward to meeting you newcomers who made it up the long driveway, wondering where on earth you were going and what you would find when you got to the top of the hill. So we hope that you feel yourselves warmly received here. At Soulful Sundown, we always take up a collection for a cause outside of the congregation, and tonight we are taking up a collection for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI or NAMI, depending on who you are and what part of the country you're from. We will be taking up a collection for NAMI, a 501c3 organization, which is the largest grassroots mental health organization of the nation, dedicated to building better lives for millions of Americans affected by mental illness. What started as a small group of families gathered around a kitchen table, which I'm sure each of us can imagine, that organization has blossomed into the nation's leading voice on mental health. Today, NAMI is an association of hundreds of local affiliates, state organizations, and volunteers who work in all of our communities to raise awareness and provide support and education that was not previously available to those in need. We'll talk a little more about NAMI later on in the service. As Unitarian Universalists in worship, we make time and space in our lives to reach out to those around us, even strangers, to acknowledge our connection as members of the human family, experiencing our unity and a sense of fellowship with one another. We reach upward to something greater than ourselves, to something that is sometimes called God or the greatest good. And we reach within, through the clutter of our interior lives, to find that which resides at our center and enlivens us. At Soulful Sundown, one of the most important pieces is the music. Soulful Sundown grew out of a belief that music communicates what words cannot, and that music resides at the very heart of the religious experience. And so the music of Soulful Sundown is for our enjoyment, but it is also the text or the scripture for our services. The music communicates the message for the evening as much as the spoken word, so I hope that you will pay careful attention to the music. That said, at Soulful Sundown, you're encouraged to be fully present in body, mind, and spirit, so I hope you won't get too hooked into the lyrics. You don't have to read every single word that appears on the screen above us. It is a wonderful thing, that screen. It is amazing that we can have words up there, but you don't have to pay attention to every single one of them. Take in the sound, take in its fullness, take in the silence. Be present in the experience that's created by the music. So tonight you're invited to sing and clap and tap your toes and to dance as the Spirit moves. There are two songs in particular that you may wish to move to. One comes up early in the service, so be prepared, okay? You've been warned. And since the music is such a very important part of our service, I want to take this time to thank the musicians who share their talents with us month after month after month. Tonight we give thanks for the presence of Pat Falco, who is hiding behind me really well tonight. And John Predis. John Predis is here with us. And Eugene Ruffalo. And Mark Schulman is back with us. And Ben Wish. And our band leader, Chris Marshak, back here. You all are much loved. Following tonight's service, we'll reconvene in the social hall, which is just across the lobby, for our monthly coffee house, which will be hosted by Michael Visceglia, who is here with us. Thank you so much for joining us this evening from Kinky Boots. And our coffee house features Lucy Kaplansky, who I know you're all very excited to hear. I know we're all looking forward to that. We're so glad she could come back and be with us again. So, folks, let's move on, shall we? Oscar, would you help me with lighting the chalice, please? As we prepare to kindle the flame of our chalice, which is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, friends, I invite you to join with me for a moment of quiet. I know silence is tricky for us, but we're going to take a little moment of quiet here, a moment of pause, a moment of both solemnity and joyful gladness in remembrance of Rob Poe. A year ago, Rob Poe, a longtime Soulful Sundown musician, lost his battle to cancer. And I know that the anniversary of Rob's death is present in the minds and hearts of our musicians, as it is for many of you who have been coming to Soulful Sundown for many years. I know that Rob is present in my heart. And so tonight we acknowledge our grief and remember Rob. We believe he is here in spirit in this space with great gladness for the gifts of life, in particular the gifts of friendship and music. We give thanks. In our times of grief and sorrow, may we be reminded to live lives of greater kindness and compassion, knowing that we are all just temporary dwellers here and that each of us is a precious part of creation. With gladness for this day and this gathering of people which has never been before and may never be again, and for this time that we share together this evening, we kindle this flame. And you may want to move soon. Go ahead.
You're the kind of person you meet at certain dismal, dull affairs. Center of a crowd talking much too loud, running up and down the stairs. Well, it seems to me that you have been so much in too few years. And though you tried, you just can't hide. Your eyes are filled with tears. You better stop and look around. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes, here it comes. Well, here comes your 19th nervous breakdown. When you were a child and you treated kind, but you never brought up right. You were always spoiled with 1,000 toys, still you cried at night. Your mother who neglected you owes $1 million tax. And your father's still perfecting ways, making sealing wax. You better stop and look around. Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Well, here comes your 19th nervous breakdown. Oh, who's to blame? That girl's just insane. Yeah, nothing I do don't seem to work. It only seems to make matters worse. Oh, please. You were still in school when you had that fool who really messed up your mind. And after that you turned your back on treating people kind. On our first trip I tried so hard to rearrange your mind. But after a while I realized you only rearranging mine. You better stop and look around. Here it comes, here it comes, Here comes your 19th nervous breakdown. Oh, who's to blame? That girl's just insane. Yeah, nothing I do don't seem to work. It only seems to make matters work. Oh, please. Yeah, when you were a child, you treated kind, but you never brought up right. You were always spoiled with 1,000 toys. Still you cried at night. Your mother who neglected you owes $1 million tax. And your father's still reflecting ways of making sealing wax. You better stop and look around. Here it comes. Here comes your 19th nervous breakdown. Here comes your 19th nervous breakdown. Here comes your 19th nervous breakdown. Here comes your 19th nervous breakdown.
It's always hard to talk after all that dancing. So the center section of the sanctuary, you now know what you're in for. There'll be another opportunity later. Quite out of the blue, a new friend said to me, "Have you ever noticed how people will talk about what a great workout they had at the gym? They'll give you all the gory details of it, how hard they worked, how they sweated, who was there, how much they lifted. Or they'll tell you about this fabulous, life-changing yoga class that they went to once, and this amazing instructor that you had to spend time with and learn from and experience for yourself. But no one ever, ever talks about their therapist that way. They never, ever talk about their moments of epiphany or life-altering insights that came about during that awesome therapy session they had this week. It is so weird that we can talk about moving closer to our physical goals. We can give people such detail about us. We can talk about our body fat percentage with near strangers. Like, how weird is that? Who wants to know that about somebody else? We can talk about increasing our muscle mass. We can talk about our swim times or how far we ran or how fast we ran. But we don't or can't talk about our emotional or mental health goals. We don't talk about wanting to lead more joyful lives, or how we might reduce our anxiety, or that we're wrestling with anxiety or depression. We don't talk about how we'd like to better understand those recurring patterns in our relationships, or how we want to come to terms with some early life event that wounded us, without which we might be very different. One afternoon, as I was ruminating over my new friend's observation that we don't talk about our moments of epiphany in therapy, and I'm not going to, everybody in this room has probably been in therapy. I would venture to guess most people I know have been in therapy, if not for long stretches of time, for short stretches of time at least. So I don't think it's just that we haven't been in therapy. So I'm just going to toss that out there. Anyway, I've been ruminating about this for a while since my friend said this. And as I was thinking about that one day, I overheard someone talking on the phone, because that's what people do now. Everywhere you go, people are talking on the phone. But usually they have this little thing in their ear and you can't even tell that they're talking on the phone, which, raises all kinds of questions. But so there I was on a line in a place where we buy coffee, many of us. And there was this person online in front of me that I was just sort of listening to a little bit, I will confess, talking about her need for a mental health day. She was talking to her friend on the phone about needing a little time off, like, oh, I really need a mental health day. And I could see by her body language that she didn't feel sort of as flippant about it as her voice made it sound. She looked like she needed a mental health day. We've all been there, so there's no judgment there. We talk about needing mental health days, but rare is the person who actually informs their colleagues or employer that they are taking a mental health day. And rarer still is the employer who would say, you know, I think that is a great idea for you. You should take this day. Maybe you need to. Are you well enough to be here? We don't want to spread that around the office, you know. It would be wonderful if an employer could say, take a mental health day, and I hope it is as restorative as you need it to be. Imagine what that working world would look like. What our professional lives would look like. What our collegial relationships would look like. When 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health condition every year, shouldn't we encourage people to take mental health days and not like wink, wink, take a mental health day? Shouldn't we say there is a cost to you and to all of us when you don't take a mental health day? It seems that taking an occasional day off when we aren't physically ill might go a very, very long way in protecting our emotional and mental well-being. So why do we slink around about it? Because it's shameful, obviously. Because people don't talk about their mental health. Because the stats suggest that 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health condition every year, and that leaves a whole slew of other people who didn't experience one this year. And so the one whose turn it is feels the need to hide and to pretend it's not happening. I tried an experiment recently. After a stretch of having the blues, I posted a note on Facebook about having had the blues and planning a vacation to the Bahamas. You remember when I went to the Bahamas in February and it snowed on all of you? That vacation. So that vacation was planned in December, and I posted that on Facebook. I wanted to share the excitement that I had about going to Atlantis and acknowledge that I had the blues. Lots of friends responded to my excitement about this vacation and told me about when they had been to Atlantis, and it was great fun to get all these messages and engage about this awesome vacation that we were going to take that we so looked forward to. But not one person asked me about having the blues. Not one. Not privately, not there in that more public forum, not one. Now, we all know why no one reacted to that bit of information. Because people don't share that kind of stuff on Facebook or other social media. We make our lives look phenomenal. Let me tell you about all the great things that happened. Let me show you the best pictures of myself. Like, you know, not the worst ones, not the real ones, but the best ones. We don't talk about our emotional health. And we don't ask about each other's. But had I been in a really bad way, and I've been in really bad ways at times, and I would bet a lot of you have too. But had I been in a really bad way, and had I not had people with whom I could talk to about how I was feeling, I can tell you that I would have felt doggone alone and despondent and alone is one dark and hellish place to be.
my friend. And can't you see? Many times we've been out drinking. Many times we shared our thoughts. But did you ever notice the kind of thoughts I got? Well, you know I have love for everyone I know. And you know I have a drive to leave that won't let go. But can you see? This opposition comes rising up sometimes. Yet its dreadful imposition comes blacking through my mind. In that I see a darkness, in that I see a darkness, and that I see a darkness, that I see a darkness. Did you know how much I love you? 'Cause I hope that somehow you can save me from this darkness. Well, I hope someday, buddy, we'll find peace in our lives, together or apart, alone or with our wives, and we can stop our holding and draw the smiles inside and light it up forever and never go to sleep. My best unbeaten brother, this isn't all I see. Oh no, I see a darkness. 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 Did you know how much I love you? 'Cause I'm hoping that somehow you can save me from this darkness.
As I said, 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health condition every year. And 1 in 17 people lives with a serious mental illness. Half of mental health conditions begin by age 14, and 75% of mental health conditions develop by age 24. As I have thought about our time together this evening, I have thought about my mental health and that of my loved ones, and some of the mental health, wellness, recovery, and illness that I have observed. I have thought about a member of the church community I grew up in, a woman who was the mother of a friend, and he was a fellow choir member. His mom used one crutch. She had very few teeth. She carried many bags. It was clear that sometimes she hadn't bathed, and she and her son struggled to remain housed. No one ever talked about why. it wouldn't have been polite. And we were very polite Park Avenue churchgoers. I thought of a man who lived in the neighborhood that I grew up in. He wandered the neighborhood. He had a home. He lived in a building on Madison Avenue between 94th and 93rd, buildings that are now gone, sort of matching little walk-ups that were right next to each other. He lived in one of those buildings. He wandered the streets just furiously most of the time. You never quite tell what language he was speaking. He yelled a lot. And when I was a kid, he frightened me. I remember so well the way he looked, and it's funny, as I've tried to bring him up in mind and memory in thinking about tonight's service, he had gray hair pulled back in a ponytail and a gray beard that was trimmed. And I remember him always wearing a suit. But in my memory, he's all gray. Everything about him is sort of washed out as he walked furiously around the neighborhood, yelling like that, and it was frightening. And my brother, who's older, and his friends said that he was a Vietnam vet and that he had post-traumatic stress disorder. And my mother talked about the deinstitutionalization of the 70s and that she thought that he had probably been in an institution for some period of time. We never saw anybody with him. And the only time he was ever still, and the only time he was ever quiet, and the only time that he didn't seem scary and have this sort of wild look in his eyes was when he was sitting on the stoop of the building drinking from a bottle in a brown paper bag. And then the buildings were torn down and he was gone. When I was young and fresh out of college and walking around with my degree in psychology, I got a job as a case manager with an outpatient drug and alcohol treatment program. My first clients were dually diagnosed, people living with mental illness and addiction. Yeah, let's give the new case manager the dually diagnosed. That makes good sense. Feels like we were all set up for failure in that scenario. One of my first days on the job, I did a series of home visits with the case manager whose clients I was taking as she was moving off to a different site. We went to visit Pete, a few years older than me, living in the most god-awful mess I had ever seen. And I thought myself pretty savvy, you know. Being a native Manhattanite who'd been all over the place, I thought I had seen it all. But here in this rural community, in this apartment, we stood just inside the front door because there wasn't anywhere else to go in the apartment, though it was pretty large, it seemed. There was crap everywhere, stuff piled up everywhere. I couldn't see the floor. There was clothing or material of some kind, food, garbage, bags, containers, furniture possibly underneath. There were lumps that sort of rose up high into the room. The smell was unbearable. The bugs were big. And I wanted to run screaming out of that place and away from Pete, who was a little taller than I am, a little older than I am. Long, blonde, filthy, matted hair, a scraggly beard before scraggly beards became hip, a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and fingers stained from tobacco, which was actually kind of hard to see because Pete was so dirty. And he smelled revolting. Pete said everything was fine. There was nothing he needed. Everything was good. He was going to meetings. The case manager that I was with and I just stood there like, oh yeah, right, okay. Pete was in deep denial about his diagnosis of schizophrenia. He'd been arrested a bunch of times. He'd been held in the local psychiatric facility, which was one of those frightening late 1800s structures. You know, you can just picture that scary Gothic building that they call the lunatic asylum. It actually was called the lunatic asylum and was terrifying looking, and Pete had spent lots of time there, locked there. I came to know Pete because he was court mandated to treatment. and he was court mandated to receive his psychotropic medications by injection. So for his own well-being, Pete would be medicated, whether he wanted to be or not. And all the while, through all of that, Pete couldn't or wouldn't stop getting high. He was treating his disease himself, or so he was trying. With the passing of time in that job and later working in Manhattan with formerly homeless senior citizens, I met lots of folks like Pete, folks who suffered with chronic, not well-managed diseases, folks who were also trying to manage their disease with drugs and alcohol. Had the illness for Pete and others been purely physical, most of those people would have had some good support, you know? But by the time I met them, most of those people were alone. Alone. Family members and friends had long ago been burned out and exhausted by the experience of loving someone with an untreated mental illness, someone in denial about their own disease and unable to seek recovery. Like other diseases, dis-ease of the mind disrupts the whole family system, the whole social system. In the words of a man named Andre, who was writing about the experience of living with mental illness, he says, it feels like doubting everything around you, yourself, unable to trust your doctors, your friends, your parents, your siblings, your loved ones. You can only listen to the intrusive voices in your head telling you that you are sick, that you are dying, that you don't deserve happiness. It is a constant battle with my mind every day. So how do you stay in relationship with someone who has that kind of battle on their hands, on their mind, and in their heart all of the time? There is no relief, no respite, no time off, no vacations, no going to Atlantis to get away from that. Loved ones struggle. Parents struggle when their children exhibit signs of mental illness. There is confusion, fear, and shame in the present, and mourning for a future that will not be, or won't be as the parents imagined. Siblings struggle, or are lost in the shuffle as the family system has to focus on one member. And children living with people with mental illness suffer too. I remember so well a dear college friend describing how he, out of all of the children in his family, and while his father was silent, how he had to say to his mother's psychiatrist, because his mother lived with bipolar disorder that was not well managed, how mom should not be released from the hospital for Christmas because it was too damn hard to handle her at home. And he, the 14-year-old, couldn't do it. The kid who said that mom can't come home for Christmas. I think he spent the rest of his mother's life trying to make it up to her. Mental illness rocks the family. This was never more clear to me than when I visited once a pediatric psych unit, which I have to say was the saddest place I have ever been, and a place that I hope most never have to go. The long and short of it is, folks, that mental illness is a fact of life. It's present in our histories if we look through our lives, and it's present in this moment, right here, right now, with each of us. If not our own wrestlings, the wrestlings of our family members. And the work before us is to strip away the stigma, to make it possible for people to speak freely, for each of us to speak freely our truth, and for our loved ones or ourselves to get the help that we need. So our work is to strip away that stigma and for families and individuals to be held in tender embrace by all of the people around them who understand that there, for the grace of God, go I. One young woman wrote that mental illness feels like I am trapped down a well, yelling and yelling for help, but nobody can hear me.
I'm in here, and anybody see me? Can anybody help? I'm in here, a prisoner of history. Can anybody help? Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting so for you to come rescue me. I need you to hold all of the sadness I cannot live with inside me. I'm in here trying to tell you something. Can anybody help? I'm in here. I'm calling, but you can't hear. Can anybody help? Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need you to hold all of the sadness I cannot live with inside me. I'm crying out, I'm breaking down, I'm fearing it all. Stuck inside these walls. Tell me there is hope for me. Is anybody out there listening? Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need to hold all of the sadness I cannot live with inside of me. I'm in here. I'm here. Can anybody see me? Can anybody help?
all of the sadness I cannot live with inside of me. I'm a pretty happy dude. Stacy doesn't like him, but I think my puns are hysterical. I am a funny guy. And there was a moment a while back. I had had a series of professional and personal setbacks. And I could not see the world the way I was used to seeing it. The joy that I would wake up with would come, but maybe for 10 minutes in an afternoon and then disappear. The cooking that I loved to do felt like a chore. The colors of spring were a little less beautiful. The still small voice that we talk about in ministry had faded to silence. It is a terrifying time. And I realized that if I was a congregant and I had walked into my office and described what I was going through like this, I would be picking up the phone and making a referral for that congregant. So I picked up the phone and made a referral for myself. And that in and of itself is terrifying. One of the things, as my internship here is ending, I've been going through the search process for congregations elsewhere in the country. And as part of the search process, congregations do a survey called Beyond Categorical Thinking. And they're given a list of attributes that a minister might have, and they say whether or not they would be welcoming of a minister with those attributes. Most UU congregations, not all, but most, will say they have no problem with a minister of any race. They'll have no problem with a minister of any gender orientation, of any age. But most of them include a note saying, we have some thinking to do if a minister has a mental health diagnosis. It's not that those congregations don't have prejudices in all those other ways. It's that they don't talk about them. But mental illness, that is a prejudice that is easy to admit to. And so I referred myself terrified for what that would mean, and I walked into the doctor's office and I described what was going on. And she sat back in her chair and said, "Oh, well, what you're describing is depression and generalized anxiety. Simple. 1 out of 5 people every year." She said, "We'll get you in treatment, we'll get you on some medication, you're going to be fine." And it wasn't the medication, it wasn't the treatment, because I started feeling better before that. I felt better as soon as what was going on had a name. That this wasn't a failing of mine, this was an illness that had a name and could be treated out in the open, that we could be honest about. The act of naming is a powerful thing. The act of bringing all of this into the open so we can talk about it and be honest is powerful. So I'll invite Jennifer to the podium with me for a litany of naming, hoping to break the bonds that can too often silence us when mental illness is part of our life, because naming has power. So tonight, We name some of the unknown gifts and challenges in life. We name
the pain when people turn away because of fear,
the courage to speak our truth,
the strength that comes from being with those who will listen,
the isolation that comes when no one knows what to say,
the hope which brings us to tomorrow,
the realization that mental illness can be managed,
the exhaustion that comes with living with a mental illness, our own or someone else's,
the relief that comes when mental illness and recovery are recognized by the religious community,
the wisdom that comes when we are educated about mental health,
the growth that comes when we walk alongside those who, in lives affected by mental illness, show us both resilience and vulnerability.
We acknowledge these very real and present challenges, those we have named and those we do not have names for, but are nonetheless present in our lives.
And we give thanks for the gifts of the Spirit and community that help us navigate life in its fullness.
May we seek help when we need it,
Give support when we are needed,
and be present to each other today and in all days. So may it be. Thank you. In a moment, we'd like to share with you a video from the National Alliance on Mental Illness and invite you to generously make a contribution to their good work in the world. Would you share it with us, please?
Hi, my name is Mayim Bialik, and you probably know me from The Big Bang Theory, where I play neurobiologist Amy Farrah Fowler. Well, in real life, I'm actually a trained neuroscientist who spent 7 years of my life working towards a PhD specializing in obsessive-compulsive disorder. My research for my thesis confirmed a significant personal connection for me with OCD. OCD is real, as are anxiety, depression, and panic disorder. I know about those as well. I also know way too much about bipolar disorder, suicidal depression, and a host of other conditions I've come in close contact with in my life. But my interest and involvement in the world of mental illness didn't start in graduate school. I come from a family full of a phenomenal set of skills, and also a tremendous amount of struggle. Many in my family have lived with mental illness without help or support. As hard as it is to live with a mental health condition and not get help, it's also hard to love someone with a mental health condition when we don't know how to help. As I left my parents' home and went out into the world, I learned that people who struggle with mental health conditions are to be found in every corner of the globe, in every racial and ethnic group, and from poor and rich families alike. No family is immune from mental health conditions, and it's a rare and blessed gift to be able to get help when you or a loved one need it. I've turned to NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, as a resource for myself and those I love for years. NAMI is a nonprofit organization whose goal it is to provide support and information to those living with mental health conditions or loving someone who's living with a mental health condition. NAMI does this through support groups, my personal favorite, fundraisers, public service announcements aimed to remove the stigma from mental illness, advocacy, and helplines to give you support if you or a loved one need it. It's not easy to talk about mental health conditions, but I know too many people I love who did not get help in time. And that's why I've chosen to speak out with NAMI and spread the message that I am stigma-free and everyone deserves to get the help and support they need. And NAMI can help you do that. Please consider being a part of NAMI's mission.
Friends, I invite you now to join in taking up a collection for the good work of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, for each of us and for those we love. Would the ushers please come forward?
Will you join me in a time of prayer and meditation? O God of many names, God known and unknown, bringer of comfort in our need, we pray for all those facing mental illness, maybe our friends, our family, ourselves, those with a diagnosis, those untreated, those who have not yet sought help. We pray tonight for families torn apart, for families holding on by a thread. We pray for those who are contemplating suicide. May the will to live increase and outweigh the pain. And we pray for those whose loved ones felt that life was too much to bear. Bring comfort. We pray for mental health providers, researchers, doctors, other professionals who seek to bring compassion, treatment, and healing to this broken world. Help society, help each of us be more compassionate, less quick to judge. We give thanks for the creative genius of artists, scientists, authors, scholars, business leaders, actors, musicians, dancers, inventors, people we pass on the street who live with mental illness. We are in awe of the intricate ways of creation. Grow in us the sense of wonder. And above all things tonight, may all who live with mental illness and those who love them be given the grace that is hope. Hope unasked for and unexpected. Amen.
I won't tell you where I've been, only that it's so good to be home. It's possible to go so far down. Some of you might already know. Did you get there too? I won't tell you what I've seen, only that this world can be so mean. Brave souls shuffling up and down the halls. No one visits, no one even calls. Did you wait there too? And I've been getting better these days, and I've been sleeping in my own bed again, and I've been dreaming in full color. Oh, goodbye sorrow, I found another way. I won't tell you what I've done, if not for my dearest ones. Chemistry can sort of leave you in the lurch. I'm just glad I found a cure. Did you find one too? But if the world should really pale, dark night of the soul is real, lend me your fur. I've been there, and one day down darkness clears, and I've been getting better these days, and I've been sleeping in my own bed again, and I've been dreaming in full color. Oh, goodbye, sorrow. I found another. Oh, goodbye, goodbye. Oh, goodbye. I found another. I found another. Oh, goodbye, goodbye. Oh, goodbye. I found another. I found another. And I've been getting better these days, and I've been sleeping in my own bed again, and I've been dreaming in full color. Oh, goodbye, sorrow. I found another way to stay.
A couple of years ago, 25 years after meeting Pete the first time, I decided I'd Google him. Because what do you do but Google people, right? It's like stalkers of the world unite. So I Googled him. And I found that he was alive and healthy and in recovery, and an advocate for people living with mental illness in the community where he still lives. He'd written a long piece about his story for a psychologist in the community and described all of the ways that he'd struggled and parts of the story that I knew and parts of the story that I didn't know, and how it was that he finally got clean and how it was that he finally came to accept his diagnosis and find new life. And for 2 years, I wondered, should I call or write Pete and tell him that I've read this? And I don't know that I ever would or that I will. It is out there for all the world to read, but it seems a little creepy now, doesn't it? But how glad I am that he's okay. How glad I am that he found his way to recovery. How glad I am that he is stable and well and doing what he loves and doing it well. How glad I am to stand at a distance and get to witness that. And how I hope for each person living with mental illness that they might find recovery. May we aspire to lives that are stigma-free. May we lend support to each other. May we seek out support when we need it. Our closing words for tonight are the words of Wayne Arneson, words that I turn to again and again and again, and I share them with you, and maybe you'll carry them in your heart. Take courage, friends. The way is hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. But take courage, friends, for there is another truth. You are not alone. May we go knowing that we can be held by others as we hold them. Our closing song tonight is aspirational. As I described to my 11-year-old the nature of tonight's service, and talked with him about mental illness and mental health and conditions of all kinds on that full spectrum, he said, I have a song that you need to end the service with. So this is offered to us by an 11-year-old. Keep that in mind. It is aspirational that we should be able to live this way. And this is a great opportunity to get in your aerobic activity for the evening.
Lord, when you're feeling low and you just don't know where to run to, bro, if your heart's been broken, you feel like you're all alone. If you need something to believe in, if you're looking for a light to guide you home, just look inside. Your light is shining brighter than you know. And you should know, I'm never gonna let you down. I'm always gonna build you up. When you're feeling lost, I will always find your love. I'm never gonna walk away. I'm always gonna have your back. And if nothing else, you can always count on that. When you need me, I promise I will never let you down. I will make you laugh if you ever feel like crying. Close, I will hold you close. You won't be alone anymore. If you need someone to believe in, if you're reaching for a hand to guide you home, just take my hand and I won't let you go. I hope you know I'm never gonna let you down. I'm always gonna build you up. When you're feeling lost, I will always find your love. I'm never gonna walk away. I'm always gonna have your back. And if nothing else, you can always count on that. I'm never gonna let you down. I'm always gonna build you up. When you're feeling lost, I will always find your love. I'm never gonna walk away. I'm always gonna have your back. And if nothing else, you can always count on that. When you need me, I promise I will never let you down. Ain't never gonna let you down. If you need something to believe in, if you feel like you reach the end of the road, don't be afraid, I'll always guide you home. You should know I'm never gonna let you down. I'm always gonna build you up. When you're feeling lost, I will always find your love. I'm never gonna walk away. I'm always gonna have your back. And if nothing else, you can always count on that. I'm never gonna let you down. I'm always gonna build you up. When you're feeling lost, I will always find your love. I'm never gonna walk away. I'm always gonna have your back. And if nothing else, you can always count on that. When you need me, I promise I will never let you down. Oh, ain't never gonna let you down. Ain't never gonna let you down.
I hope you'll join us in the social hall. Thank you all for being here. Lovely. All right, run with your instruments. Run.